hills. Have you seen my son, my boy, my little dear? Yes, I saw him early, heading for a wedding feast. On his heart, a red poppy I saw. Tell me, hunter, who is she who took my son away? Where does he lie wed with her? Your son lies on a stone. To a bullet he is wed. Not with a doe he lies. The war was over. We began to rebuild our country. Stalin led us through the war, and we looked to him for inspiration as we prepared to rise out of the ashes. We would build a better Russia. But it was not long before the old warning signs returned. I didn't see that the darkest days of my life were about to begin.
Конечно, он знал, что вокруг какие-то происходят драмы, что какие-то люди исчезают. Я не боюсь сказать «за» своего отца, но, как я понимаю, многие, и он, верили, что это какая-то объективные события. Я так думаю, что он не знал всю трагическое существо этих событий.
April 1948, the inaugural session of the Union of Soviet Composers in the Hall of Columns. There had been dozens of speeches and planning sessions and delays. Here at last was a meeting of minds that would shape the future of Soviet music. I was proud to be there. After all, I was the deputy chairman of the organizing committee 11 years earlier. But Stalin was playing Russian roulette with the gun pointed at us, and my luck was about to change.
1948 was a replay of the events in 1936, but the campaign was much broader and more sustained. Practically, the whole country was involved. It's very difficult now even to imagine how, when the Soviet Union was still hurting from the Great World War, everybody could be so consumed with the question of music. But it was Stalin's wish, so everybody got involved.
И вот совершенно неожиданно в 1948 году меня вызвали в ЦК и сказали, что вот приказ Сталина, и что вот освобождается от своих постов Khachaturian, который был моим ближайшим другом. Вот, а вместо Khachaturian меня, Хренникова. Ну, я начал заниматься этим делом, потому что идти вопреки воли Сталина это никто не имел.
My old friend Khrenyakov prepared to speak. What we were expecting to hear was very different from what he finally said. We were all guilty, he ranted, of formalism, of composing music that did nothing to aid the socialist ideal.
It was then that a very dangerous concept, not just of formalism, but of anti-people composers was introduced. Anti-people sounds also in Russian very dangerously. You know, it was a political label. Formalist was artistic label, but anti-people implied that there are Soviet people and you are against all of them.
И вдруг среди всех антинародных композиторов, которые там были поименованы, был и Прокофьев, и Шостакович, самые большие, и Khachaturian, самые большие наши музыканты. Я не мог ничего сделать.
Most of the accused were so shocked by the charges leveled against them that they didn't know how to respond. Cultural repressions had become commonplace in the theater, in the cinema, and in literature. But seeing the names of composers on a blacklist surprised all of us. How can a musical phrase endanger the security of the state? Only 2 years earlier, most of us had been showered with prizes and awards by Stalin himself.
A short list of only 6 names was formed of main culprits, of main anti-people composers. And this list included, the first name was Shostakovich, second Prokofiev, and Khachaturian came third. And he was the first in this list to represent the old leadership. So for him, it was especially hard to understand and harsh, and he didn't expect anything like that, coming certainly directly from Stalin himself.
The beads of sweat dropped from our foreheads as the names were announced. Dmitry Shostakovich and Sergei Prokofiev. They were forced to recant, but continued to write great music. Vissarion Shebalin, who later died of a stroke, surely brought on by his denunciation. It was said that my close friend Dmitry Kabalevsky got his name taken off the list. He suggested poor Gavril Popov's name be substituted. The switch was made in the wink of an eye. Popov took to drink, and a promising career was ended. Nikolai Miskovsky, my beloved teacher, who even on his deathbed refused to accept the accusations against him. He was the only one of us not to recant. But nothing can prepare you when you hear your own name, Aram Ilyich Khachaturian. Suddenly, I was a composer of anti-people's music. Now you are the one who is being accused. You are suddenly a non-person. And your first name is no longer Aram. Your first name is now the anti-people composer.
На этом совещании, значит, дали возможность после доклада выступать и музыкантам, композиторам, обсудить это дело. И вот здесь была поразительная, так сказать, вещь, когда люди, которые накануне, скажем, восхищались музыкальными сочинениями Шостаковича, Прокофьева, Мисковского или Арама, значит, эти же люди вдруг стали говорить, черт знает что.
Для меня это было просто трагедия. Я пришел домой и рассказал Кларе, своей жене. Она стала рыдать и плакать, и мы вместе всю ночь вот и пробыли в таком трагическом состоянии. Вот так вот.
It all came from Stalin. There was now no doubt. The Central Committee was just following orders. Krenyakov was advancing his career by currying Stalin's favor. Our great leader was cementing his control of Soviet music and all of Soviet culture. How they all applauded their victory. My colleagues and I had set out to liquidate music, and Stalin had stopped us. The whole country, instead of thinking of its squalid life, was entering mortal combat with the formalist composers.
Чему появилось постановление 1948 года? Это перед этим, значит, опустился железный занавес перед нашей страной, и все советское на Западе, все это считалось крамольным, что это все никуда не годно и так далее, и так далее. И наше правительство вынуждено было ответить на это какой-то ответной реакцией. И ответной реакцией у нас пошла борьба с западничеством. Вот что, собственно, было сердцевиной постановления 1948 года. Это был ответ на железный занавес. Сталин в этих людях видел символ нашей страны, как величайшие сыны советского народа. И они были орудием в политической борьбе между Западом и Востоком.
I see a reaction for three people, because these three people was most closest for me. That's for Prokofiev, Shostakovich, and Khachaturian. Prokofiev was like a child. He don't understand what happens. Shostakovich understand what happens, and he was strong. Khachaturian was so disappointed. He maybe suffered more than any another.
Я виделся вечером с Арамом после этого, когда он вернулся домой под этим ужасающим совершенно впечатлением, потому что люди раскрылись, понимаете? Люди вот в такие ситуации, человек как на оселке, либо он порядочный, либо это прохиндей и трус.
Я вот так вспоминаю свою жизнь, у меня совесть чиста. Может быть, я мог бы заболеть, я не знаю что. Но я был не обстрелянный еще, ни общественный, ни политический деятель. Я до сих пор считаю самым большим своим несчастьем в жизни, когда мне пришлось читать этот доклад.
Коммунистическая партия.
Я помню, что это была драма, трагедия в доме, и что мой отец находился в крайне тяжелом душевном состоянии. Для него очень важны были человеческие отношения. И поэтому он очень болезненно воспринимал, когда кто-то, так сказать, предавал его. Потому что многие люди, которые перед ним, понимаете, старались, так сказать, все сделать для него, как произошло эти события 1948 года, вдруг сразу резко от него отвернулись.
Yes, Niran Harset Asumaramelich, Nut Susero Para, Amarumek Formalista Constantagolsun, Asat Ayo, yes, Amarum Susero Para, da Formalista Constantagolsun. Asimuremen Aramelich, Jourte Sirume del Formalista Canyerashun.
For Khachaturian, it was incredible personal and creative blow. And he thought always, and he told me so, that these events crippled him, both as a personality and as a composer. It took him all his courage to overcome the frightening consequences of all this denunciation and to start to compose again.
Я не могу сказать, что Арам Ильич полностью избежал притеснений. Хотя, по сравнению с другими композиторами, он не был так гоним, как, скажем, Шостакович или Прокофьев. Я думаю, что это прежде всего благодаря тому, что все-таки основа его творчества – это, так сказать, народность, народная музыка, народная армянская музыка.
I was told I had estranged myself from my Armenian roots. I had become cosmopolitan. They sent me to Armenia. They thought of it as a punishment. It would become my salvation. For my penance, I was brought to the peasants, paraded before them. In the land I had always cherished, the land that had nourished my music again and again, now, in my homeland, I was called anti-people. An official came with me. I called him my personal commissar. He reported my every move back to Moscow. I traveled from village to village, and at each stop a concert was presented for my re-education. At one of these concerts, I heard my own music, written for the Armenian film Peppo. Who is the composer of that piece, I asked. That is an old folk song, the villagers answered. The name of the composer is long lost. How true. This little moment of irony provided my one smile during this time.
Khachaturian has taken from the Armenian people the melodies and music. He wanted to give back again to the people, and he succeeded doing this. Because sometimes composers take folk song and develop in a way that the people or the nation doesn't identify with. But when Armenian people listen to any of his music, it sounds actually the same as they played on the folk instruments.
During this trip, this time of crisis in my life, my thoughts often drifted back to my mother and father and my brothers. My father was a peasant, an illiterate man. but he made himself into a master bookbinder, rising above his humble beginnings. Now his perseverance would be my inspiration. My mother gave me my love of music. Throughout my return to Armenia, I heard her voice, singing her folk songs, her lullabies, the songs passed down to her from her own parents. Her voice echoing inside my head was a constant comfort to me. I remembered the year of trouble, 1915, during World War I when the Turks threatened Tbilisi and we had to flee. We departed our home and set out for the Kuban, to my older brother Vaginak's house in the city Krasnodar. The Turks turned back before they ever reached Tbilisi, and we returned home in the fall. My people have always struggled to survive. We were the first Christian nation, embracing the faith even before ancient Rome. Since 300 AD, we have defended our culture from a long line of invaders. The center of our resistance is our Christian faith, the pulse that beats in every Armenian heart.
Երբ ես Արամ Խաչատուրյանի տուն եմ մտնում, նա ինձ հարցնում է Հայաստանի մասին, իր ընկերների մասին։ Եվ երբ եթե տանը հյուրեր են լինում եւ հյուրերը գնում են, ինձ ասում է դու մի գնա, մնա։ Այդ օրը այդպես եղավ նորից։ Եվ մենք մնացինք մենակ։ Ու ես իրեն հարցեր էի տալիս։ Ինքն էր ինձ հարցեր տալիս, ես իրեն էին պատմում։ Եվ եղավ, որ ես իրեն հարցրի, Արամ Իլիչ, ասեցի, դուք Քրիստոսին հավատում եք, հավատացյալ եք։ Սա ինչ անեց։ Մոտեցավ պատուհանին, պատուհանից նայեց դուրս։ Ես իրեն լավ տեսնում էի, որովհետև գիշերային փողոցը լուսավորված էր։ Կանգնեց, հետո ես տեսա, որ նա խաչակնքում է։ Հետո վարակույրի ետևից դուրս եկավ, մոտեցավ ինձ, ոչինչ չասեց։
I returned to Moscow. I had in mind a project that would be my greatest work yet, a ballet on a grand scale, a story for the ages about a slave uprising.